The execution was supposed to be a spectacle. Chancellor Xyloth stood at the grand balcony of the Imperial Citadel, his 8 eyes surveying the gathered crowd below. The plaza stretched endlessly, filled with thousands of alien dignitaries, military officials, and eager spectators from across the Galactic Empire. Above them, a dozen news drones hovered, broadcasting the event to every corner of the cosmos. The execution was being streamed in 1,000 different languages, each translation carefully crafted to emphasize the same message. Humanity had been broken. Their greatest general was about to die. Resistance was futile. The condemned man stood at the center of it all, shackled in electromagnetic restraints that hummed softly against the eerie silence. General Jack Mad Dog Armstrong, war hero of Earth, a man whose name sent shivers down the spines of alien commanders, looked unimpressed. His uniform was tattered, his face bore bruises from countless interrogations. But his eyes, his damnably human eyes, were filled with something Xyloth could not comprehend. Defiance. Xyloth suppressed a shudder and stepped forward, adjusting the golden ceremonial robes draped over his skeletal, multi-limbed form. The moment demanded grandeur, and he would not allow human stubbornness to ruin it. He raised his voice, ensuring that even the most distant viewers would hear him clearly. "People of the Empire," he declared, his voice magnified by the Citadel's sonic amplifiers. "Today, we cleanse the galaxy of a primitive infection." The crowd erupted into a chorus of hissing applause and guttural cheers. Xyloth allowed himself a thin-lipped smile before continuing. "This creature, this human, led the barbarian forces of Earth in rebellion against the rightful rule of the Empire. He defied our laws, defiled our authority, and dared to think his kind could stand against the might of civilization." Another wave of applause. Xyloth turned toward Armstrong, who was now studying his nails as if utterly bored. "And yet," Xyloth sneered, his voice laced with mock pity, "what has defiance brought him? Shackled before us, awaiting his inevitable fate. Humanity will know its place after today." At this, Armstrong let out a slow, exaggerated yawn. The Chancellor's lips twitched. Xyloth loathed this man. Armstrong looked up, met his gaze, and smirked. "You done?" His voice carried over the hush that had settled. "I mean, great speech, real classic villain stuff. But you might want to work on your pacing. Feels like you're stalling." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Xyloth's nostrils flared. "You mock us even now?" Armstrong shrugged. "Mocking you has been the only fun I've had in the last 3 weeks. Also, I'm trying to figure something out." Xyloth frowned. "Figure out what?" "If you guys are so advanced," Armstrong rattled his shackles, "then why do you still use rope for hangings?" Xyloth's mandibles clenched. "Tradition?" "Ah, right. Tradition." Armstrong rolled his eyes. "You know, back on Earth, we had traditions too, but we got rid of the dumb ones, like powdered wigs, and letting our leaders marry their cousins." The murmur grew louder. Some of the more erudite aliens recognized sarcasm when they heard it. Xyloth raised a clawed hand to silence them. "No words will save you now, human. The execution proceeds." Armstrong exhaled slowly, rolling his shoulders. "Well then, let's get to it. Just one request before you drop me." Xyloth scoffed. "A plea for mercy?" "Nah." Armstrong flashed a grin. "I just hope your people understand what happens next." Xyloth narrowed his eyes. "And what exactly do you think happens next?" Armstrong's grin widened, and for the first time since the execution began, Xyloth felt something entirely unfamiliar creep up his spine. "Pity. For you?" Armstrong said. "Extinction." Xyloth dismissed the absurdity of the statement with a flick of his hand. He turned to the executioner, a towering brute of a reptilian species clad in dark ceremonial armor. "Proceed." A great hush fell over the plaza as the lever was pulled. The trapdoor beneath Armstrong's feet snapped open, and humanity declared war. The news spread across Earth in mere minutes, an unfiltered broadcast beamed down by an Imperial transmission signal that had failed to account for one thing. Humans did not cower in fear. They did not break. The live feed was hijacked almost instantly. Before the Galactic Empire's sensors could react, Earth's networks plastered Armstrong's last words across every screen. For you? Extinction. The phrase exploded into cultural legend before Armstrong's body had even gone cold. Within an hour, #ExtinctionForAliens was trending on every human platform. The Empire had thought they were showcasing dominance. Instead, they had given Earth the greatest rallying cry in its history. The President of Earth, formerly General Thomas Briggs, was at a press conference when the news came in. He did not hesitate. He crushed his cigar underfoot, took the podium, and growled into the microphone, "So they hanged Mad Dog. That was real stupid." A reporter stammered, "And Mr. President, what will Earth's response be?" Briggs glared at the cameras. "Son, you ever heard the term overkill?" He leaned in. "You're about to." The war declaration was unanimous. Humanity, a species known for bickering over the dumbest of things, pineapple on pizza, the best Star Wars trilogy, whether cats or dogs were superior, was now united under a single cause: revenge. The Empire's first mistake had been underestimating Earth's military potential. Their second mistake was failing to realize that humans had been preparing for this war for centuries. Within a day, Earth's Black Ops units had activated Project WTF, War Tactical Fury, a classified plan meant for exactly this kind of scenario. Every spacefaring ship was armed, every cyber warfare division engaged, and every citizen mobilized. Aboard the Galactic flagship Vortex, Supreme Chancellor Xyloth read the reports with increasing horror. The humans had not collapsed into despair. They had declared total war. And they were already winning. Reports flooded in. A human battlecruiser had obliterated an Imperial scouting fleet near Mars, broadcasting its victory, with "Highway to Hell" blaring in the background. A squad of human hackers had infiltrated Imperial banking systems, redirecting funds into Earth's war machine. Rebel uprisings had ignited across dozens of alien worlds, inspired by Armstrong's execution and humanity's refusal to bow. Xyloth trembled. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Humans were supposed to fear the Empire. Instead, they were laughing. And then the final message came in. A direct transmission from President Briggs himself. Xyloth hesitated, but played it. The human leader appeared on screen, arms crossed, a slow, predatory grin on his face. "You had your little execution. Hope it felt good." His smile faded. "Because now we're coming for you?" The transmission cut. And for the first time in its 1,000-year history, the Galactic Empire felt fear. The Galactic Empire had always assumed war was an art, a game of numbers, strategy, and superior technology. They had conquered hundreds of worlds using overwhelming force, precise battle formations, and a doctrine refined over centuries. Every species they encountered fell in line, either through subjugation or annihilation. It was inevitable. Then they fought humans. The first battle was supposed to be a mere formality, a swift display of dominance to remind the upstart species of their place. The Imperial fleet, a force unmatched in 1,000 years, descended upon the Sol system with gleaming warships, sleek, angular constructs of death, each vessel equipped with shields impervious to conventional weaponry and weapons capable of shattering moons. But humans did not fight conventionally. They did not abide by the rules of war. They weaponized stupidity. Grand Admiral Vorin stood at the bridge of the Sovereign Wrath, the largest dreadnought in the fleet, watching the battle unfold with growing disbelief. What had begun as a simple planetary suppression had spiraled into something incomprehensible. The first sign that the engagement was not proceeding as expected came when the humans broadcast a message across all Imperial channels. Not a formal declaration of surrender, nor a desperate plea for mercy. Music. Loud, blaring, aggressively defiant music. A gravelly human voice roared through the speakers, backed by thunderous drums and electric guitars. It's the eye of the tiger. It's the thrill of the fight. Voron's secondary heart nearly stopped. He turned to his tactical officer, a trembling Zolothian who had gone pale beneath his chitinous exoskeleton. What is that? We believe it's a battle anthem, Admiral, the officer stammered. Voron gritted his teeth. Primitive species always had their little rituals. He dismissed it and turned back to the battle map. The Imperial fleet had already formed its standard annihilation arc, a near-impenetrable formation designed to funnel enemy ships into a kill zone. The human vessels were outnumbered and technologically inferior. Their surrender was a mathematical certainty. Except they weren't surrendering. They were charging. Not in an organized assault, not in a strategic push. No. They came at the fleet in a chaotic, erratic, suicidal swarm. Fighters weaved through space with reckless speed, juking past targeting systems that had been calibrated to expect logical flight patterns. Some of the larger human ships, retrofit freighters, for the love of the void, had painted snarling shark teeth on their hulls. One of them had "Honk if you love freedom" scrawled in enormous letters along its side. The Empire's targeting algorithms hesitated. The human formations made no sense. They did not align with any known military tactics. There was no cohesion, no discernible strategy. And yet they were winning. An Imperial destroyer exploded as a human pilot slammed his ship directly into its reactor core, ejecting at the last possible moment while screaming for "Mad Dog" over an open channel. Another human vessel, identified as Big Bertha, launched its own escape pods as projectiles, battering an Imperial cruiser's shields before deploying explosives. Voron's mandibles clenched so tightly they nearly cracked. Are they using themselves as ammunition? The tactical officer swallowed hard. It would appear so, sir. And then the hacking began. The humans, despite their supposed technological inferiority, had cracked the Empire's encrypted networks with terrifying speed. The first sign of infiltration came when every single Imperial targeting system was overridden by a single, baffling message. "Insert coin to continue." The second sign came when the command deck's main monitor abruptly switched to an archaic, pixelated game featuring a small, blocky spaceship dodging incoming asteroids. No matter what buttons the crew pressed, the game refused to close. Then, as if the sheer absurdity of the battlefield wasn't enough, a new transmission blared across every Imperial ship. This time it was a voice, deep, mechanical, synthesized. "Gentlemen," it said, "this is your captain speaking. Please remain seated and enjoy the ride. Complimentary peanuts will be served shortly." Grand Admiral Voron watched in mounting horror as human forces commandeered one of their own dreadnoughts. The imminent Dominion, a warship the size of a city, had been overtaken by a human special forces unit disguised as Voron struggled to process the report, a pizza delivery service. The lead infiltrator, identified only as Lieutenant Rico "Mad Lad" Vasquez, had entered the ship under the guise of a catering vendor. When the Imperial officers questioned the sudden arrival of pizza, Vasquez had simply shrugged and said, "Hey man, somebody ordered 70 extra-large pepperonis." Then he had detonated the engine room. The imminent Dominion was now under full human control, tearing through the Empire's own fleet while blasting what humans referred to as the Top Gun soundtrack. Voron's claws dug into the command console. This was impossible. This was not how war worked. The bridge doors burst open. High Commander XYGG stormed in. His three-pronged mouth curled into an expression of absolute fury. "Admiral, what in the name of the void is happening?" Voron exhaled sharply. "The humans, they do not fight with strategy." XYGG slammed a fist against the console. "Then what are they fighting with?" Voron turned back to the battle map. Red indicators, Imperial losses, were growing at an alarming rate. His voice was hollow when he answered. Pure, unfiltered insanity. The fleet was crumbling. In the chaos, Another human battleship, painted bright neon green with "Send Noobs" plastered across its hull, plowed straight through the remnants of an Imperial carrier. It did not fire weapons. It simply rammed through at maximum velocity. XYGG watched, horrified. Did they just? Yes, Vorin said blankly. And then came the final humiliation. As the Imperial fleet attempted to retreat, another human broadcast hijacked their screens. This time it was not music, not a taunt. It was General Jack Armstrong. Not live, obviously. His execution had been publicly broadcast for all to see, but a recording. His last recorded words, before his death, played on loop. For you? Extinction. The phrase repeated over and over. A reminder. A prophecy. XYGG stumbled back, his voice barely a whisper. Admiral, what do we do? Vorin stared at the chaos unfolding before him. He watched as humanity, this savage, unpredictable, impossible species, utterly dismantled the most powerful fleet in the galaxy with nothing but reckless ingenuity, unbreakable will, and what could only be described as a death wish. His claws tightened. He had fought 100 battles, won 100 wars. He had never encountered anything like this. We run, he said finally, and across the battlefield, as the once mighty Galactic Empire fled from a species that had only just begun to fight, humanity roared with laughter and prepared for the next round. The Galactic Empire had been humiliated. Their once invincible fleet lay in ruins, their military doctrine shattered, their dreadnoughts either captured, destroyed, or abandoned in hasty retreats. The humans had defied every known rule of warfare, replacing strategy with sheer lunacy and somehow winning. But the Empire was not finished. Deep within the icy rings of a distant gas giant, hidden away in the most classified sector of Imperial space, lay their last, most desperate hope, Project Eradicator. Supreme Chancellor Xyloth stood on the command deck of the Oblivion Spire, his fingers twitching as he watched the final preparations. The vast station encased a weapon so powerful, so absolute, that it had been deemed too horrific even by the Empire's own brutal standards. Until now, a towering figure loomed beside him, Grand Warlord XYGG, his exoskeletal armor gleaming under the cold, artificial lights. His mandibles were curled in a grimace, his elongated pupils locked on the swirling mass of energy contained within the superweapon's core. We swore we would never use this, XYGG murmured. Xyloth's gaze remained fixed on the weapon. We swore we would never need to. He turned his expression hard. And yet here we are. The humans forced our hand. XYGG exhaled slowly. What if it doesn't work? Xyloth let out a dry, humorless laugh. Oh, it will work. He gestured toward the engineers scrambling across the vast platform, calibrating the final settings. By the end of this day, humanity will be nothing more than a regrettable footnote in galactic history. The Eradicator was not a mere weapon. It was a planetary annihilation system, harnessing a singularity at its core. Unlike standard planetary bombardments, which left debris and potential survivors, this weapon would erase Earth completely, leaving nothing behind. Not a rock, not an atom, just an empty void where a planet had once existed. And now the humans were coming. The battle would take place here, above the crimson gas giant of Zereth 5, where the Empire had made its last stand. The remaining fleet, what was left of it, formed a defensive perimeter around the Oblivion Spire, the final line between human forces and the only weapon that could guarantee their extinction. The alarm klaxons blared. They're here, XYGG muttered. Xyloth turned toward the viewport, just in time to see the human fleet emerging from hyperspace. And in true human fashion, their arrival was anything but subtle. The lead ship, a massive, heavily modified battleship, had been painted in neon flames, a snarling dragon emblazoned along its hull. Someone had scrawled, "This machine kills space fascists," in massive letters across its starboard side. From the moment they arrived, chaos reigned. A human fighter squadron immediately broke off and ignored the enemy fleet entirely, heading straight for the station's main transmission tower. A confused Imperial officer shouted, "What are they doing?" before a squad of human Marines breached the tower and began live streaming the entire battle, complete with a running commentary. One of the Marines leaned into the captured camera, adjusting his helmet. "Yo, what's up, Galaxy? This is Sergeant Big Mike Hernandez, coming to you live from the Empire's last hidey hole. Today's episode, Space Tyrants Get Their Asses Kicked." The broadcast was already spreading across the Empire before the first shots were even fired. The human warships moved in unpredictable patterns, making pinpoint targeting nearly impossible. They deployed what appeared to be small, harmless drones, only for those drones to attach themselves to Imperial ships and begin blasting Rick Astley's "Never Gonna Give You Up" at maximum volume, disrupting enemy communications. Imperial captains screamed in frustration as their tactical screens were overtaken by ancient Earth memes. And yet, despite the sheer absurdity, humanity was winning again. Xyloth clenched his jaw. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and outmatched in sheer chaos. But none of it would matter once the Eradicator was fully charged. On the human flagship, the USS Armstrong, President General Thomas Briggs watched the battle unfold with his usual scowl. His cigar smoldered in his hand as he listened to his tactical officer rattle off a report. "They're circling the station, sir, but we can't break through their inner defenses. That superweapon is almost charged." Briggs exhaled slowly. "Then it's time?" His XO, Colonel Sandra Watts, turned to him with a raised eyebrow. "Time for what?" Briggs took a long drag of his cigar, then let the smoke curl from his lips as he muttered, "Plan Omega." The bridge fell silent. A few officers exchanged nervous glances. Watts frowned. "Sir, are you sure?" Briggs crushed the cigar underfoot and cracked his knuckles. "Damn right I'm sure. We're out of time. Let's hit them where it hurts." With a grim nod, Watts relayed the command. Across the battlefield, human forces suddenly stopped fighting. Their ships pulled back. The Empire watched in stunned silence as humanity, who had fought like rabid animals in every previous battle, suddenly retreated. On the command deck of the Oblivion Spire, Xyloth narrowed his eyes. "What are they doing?" XYGG shook his head. I don't know." Then something strange happened. The human fleet began broadcasting. Not a transmission, not a demand, a video feed. Xyloth turned to the main screen as it flickered to life. It was a commercial. A man in a cheap suit appeared on screen, standing in front of what looked like a used car dealership. "Howdy, y'all. I'm Crazy Eddie, and welcome to Eddie's Discount Spacecraft Emporium. Are you in the market for a lightly used, gently exploded battlecruiser? Well, buddy, you're in luck." Xyloth gawked. "What in the name of the void is this?" The camera zoomed in on Eddie, who grinned widely. "Now, you might be wondering, Eddie, what's the catch? And I'll tell ya, there is none. We've got top-of-the-line Imperial ships, barely used, captured just this week from your local space tyrants. And they gotta go, folks. Prices so low it's practically theft." Behind him, human mechanics were actively dismantling stolen Imperial warships. XYGG's mouth opened and closed. They're selling our ships? Oh, but wait. There's more." Crazy Eddie gestured toward a pile of what looked like Imperial databanks. "Act now, and we'll throw in classified Empire military codes for free." That's right, folks, you heard me? These deals are out of this world. A final message flashed across the screen. Sponsored by the Earth Defense Force. Suck it, Xyloth. Xyloth's claws snapped through the armrests of his throne. "They're mocking us." And then the alarms blared. One of the engineers shrieked, "Chancellor, the humans, they've overridden the Eradicator." Xyloth spun around. "What?" The main screen flickered again, and now there was only one image. the same phrase that had haunted the Empire since Armstrong's execution. For you? Extinction. The singularity core of the Eradicator began to destabilize. The very weapon meant to erase humanity was now spiraling out of control. Briggs' voice crackled over an open channel. "Hey, Xyloth." He paused, savoring the moment. Boom. The Oblivion Spire detonated in a cataclysmic explosion, swallowing the Empire's last hope in a blinding wave of destruction. And humanity? Humanity laughed, cheered, and prepared for the final victory lap. The Galactic Empire had never known fear. For thousands of years, it had ruled the stars with cold efficiency, expanding its reach through sheer dominance. Every species they encountered had either bowed in submission or perished beneath the might of their fleets. Civilizations were crushed, planets were razed, and history was rewritten to make it seem as if resistance had never existed at all. But now they knew fear. The destruction of the Oblivion Spire and the failure of the Eradicator had shattered the last hope of the Empire's ruling elite. What had been an unshakable bastion of order was now a crumbling shell of its former self. Fleets lay in ruins, territories had fallen into chaos, and whispers of insurrection spread like wildfire across the galaxy. And at the heart of it all, humanity stood undefeated. Supreme Chancellor Xyloth sat in the ruins of what had once been the Imperial High Command Chamber on Zithra Prime, the throne world of the Empire. The chamber was barely recognizable now. Great pillars lay broken, intricate golden murals were marred with scorch marks, and the once glorious banners of the Empire had been defiled by human graffiti. One particularly large scrawl above the main entrance read, "The Galactic Empire sucks. Earth rules." Xyloth's mandibles trembled with rage as he listened to the reports coming in from his remaining officers. "The colonies are revolting," one general rasped, his armor dented, and his voice heavy with exhaustion. "The Zolothian clans have declared independence. The Creel worlds have burned their imperial flags. The Gorgathian warlords have allied with the humans." Xyloth's eyes darkened. The Gorgathians, the most fearsome warriors in the galaxy, a species so aggressive that even the Empire had once hesitated before subjugating them. And now they fought for humanity. Another officer, his face gaunt with despair, spoke next. "The human fleet is advancing. They will be here within the hour." Silence fell over the chamber. Xyloth had fought for centuries, had crushed rebellions, had orchestrated the deaths of kings and warlords alike. But never had he faced a force like this. The humans were relentless, unpredictable, and utterly without fear. The doors to the chamber burst open. Grand Warlord XYGG stumbled inside, his armor scorched, his breathing ragged. They are here." And then the walls shook with the impact of orbital bombardment. Xyloth stood, his claws tightening into fists. He would not flee. He would not beg. He was the Supreme Chancellor of the Empire, and if this was to be his last day, he would face it with the dignity of his station. The attack came in waves. Human Marines breached the palace defenses with shocking efficiency, their weapons customized and ridiculously loud. Explosions rocked the corridors, the sounds of battle mixing with the chaotic war cries of the invaders. And over it all, human music blared through the Imperial comms, an endless barrage of ancient rock anthems. One officer clutched his head as AC/DC's Thunderstruck blasted at an ungodly volume. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" The Imperial soldiers fought bravely, but it was no use. The humans did not fight with honor. They cheated. They used deception, distractions, and tactics that no sane species would ever consider. A squad of human soldiers entered the battlefield disguised as Imperial officers, waving fake orders that sent entire regiments into disarray before the deception was even discovered. Another team deployed weaponized flashbang grenades loaded with obnoxious Earth memes, blinding the enemy with seizure-inducing images of screaming cartoon frogs and dancing humanoid cats. And then came the mechs, towering machines, each one piloted by a human with an apparent disregard for physics and common sense, stormed through the palace gates. One of them, painted bright red with "Get Rekt" Xenos scribbled across its chest, drop-kicked an Imperial tank through a wall. In the chaos, the final battle reached the throne room. Xyloth stood on the steps of his shattered throne as the doors were blown open. Smoke filled the air, and through the haze they arrived. President General Thomas Briggs led the charge, his cigar still clenched between his teeth as he stepped over the wreckage of a fallen Imperial banner. Behind him, his elite strike team fanned out, weapons at the ready. Xyloth lifted his chin. "This is madness," he spat. Briggs exhaled a long stream of smoke and smirked. "Nah," he said. "This is payback." The two leaders stared each other down. Xyloth's mandibles twitched. You do not belong here. This was never your war." Briggs tilted his head. "You murdered one of our own," he said. "That made it our war." Xyloth bared his fangs. "You have no idea what you've done." Briggs sighed. "You know," he mused, "a lot of people say that to us. And yet here we are, still standing." He pulled his sidearm, a battered, old-fashioned revolver, aimed it directly at Xyloth's head, and smirked. "For you," he whispered. Xyloth's eyes widened. Bang! The Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Empire fell. The silence that followed was absolute. Briggs exhaled and holstered his gun. He turned to his men. "Get on the comms. Tell every Imperial system the war's over." A lieutenant saluted. "Sir, what do we tell them?" Briggs grinned. "Tell them Earth is open for business." The war was over. Across the galaxy, Imperial governors surrendered. Some fought to the bitter end, only to be swiftly introduced to humanity's unconventional warfare. Others bent the knee before the first human ships even arrived in their sector, eager to negotiate rather than face the sheer absurdity of human battle tactics. And the remnants of the Empire? They were auctioned off. Captured Imperial ships were either scrapped, sold, or turned into theme parks. A human billionaire purchased the Emperor's personal palace and converted it into a luxury hotel and casino. The phrase "Viva Las Vegas 9" soon became infamous across the galaxy. Meanwhile, the human fleet kept expanding, not through conquest, but through aggressive capitalism. They bought entire star systems. They invested in alien economies. They franchised. By the time the dust settled, Earth wasn't just the dominant power in the galaxy. It was the galactic economy itself. Humanity had won, not just through battle, not just through sheer insanity, but through a level of audacity that no other species could even comprehend. And as President General Briggs leaned back in his chair, gazing at the holographic map of his newly acquired galaxy, he chuckled softly and muttered, "Well, that was fun."